All right, everybody, welcome to an early stream today. I'm about 5 hours early streaming today, but as you can see, I've got my very special guest here, Chris Sims. Thanks, Chris, for hanging out. Totally appreciate
Yeah.
it. It's awesome to have you on here. It's like I'm like starstruck, so because I like all the work that you've done. So which actually started quite a while ago. What 3.5 or something like that. So.
Yeah, I started working for Wizards in 2003.
Oof, a couple years ago. So we'll
Yeah.
get right into it. So how did you get into gaming? You know how did you get into this awesome hobby that we love so much?
Oh, so I went to my friend's house. So we had a family friend that lived like out in the country, and we would go there every couple weeks or every month or so, and the whole family would spend the night with our friends. And one time when we went over there, the my friend was playing. My friend had a bunch of friends over, and they had this red box, dragon on the front, and a warrior, and this woman with the green fireball or whatever she had in her hand. And we're like, "What's that?" "That's Dungeons and Dragons. We're gonna play." I said, "Okay, it sounds great." And I was immediately hooked when we started playing. That weekend, our parents didn't know it, but we probably slept maybe 6 hours the whole weekend. We played all. I mean, we played until we passed out, basically.
That's what we would do
So,
every weekend. Yep. And
yep.
haven't helped that first person that fell asleep because I got 12 of them. That's awesome, man.
Well, the thing is, you had like snacks and stuff, so you're eating at 4 o'clock in the morning and drinking whatever, and so.
Jacked up on big 60 cookies that are nothing but sugar. And back
And I
when
still
two
remember how my
liters were
first
20
character died.
cents. Oh,
Yeah.
how'd your first character die?
So I had this. This character did not have a name, but it was an elf because I liked the idea that you could use magic and weapons. So, and I died in cave G33 in the caves of chaos
Keeping them board.
to gray ooze. The gray oozes killed me.
Oh man, oh that was such a great adventure.
So,
We actually coerced the Mad Hermit. We actually ran into him and we
yeah.
told him that we were going to give him treasure, so he came along with us. And then we also coerced the ogre. so it was fun. That was the first thing we played. So
Yeah, that's the first thing a lot of us played. Yeah, that was in 1981 for me, I think.
um, yeah, I started in '84, so you definitely got me by a couple years. And that first time I played, that was it. On the way home from school, I begged my mom to stop by the mall. Back when there used to be malls and bookstores, we'd get a Walden bookstore, and I got I don't even think I got the red box set. I think I got Keep on the Borderlands, and then when the Gazetteer series came out, that's when I just got ultimately hooked because you just didn't read about social statuses and all these big key players and the lands and all of the locations inside of the lands. And I was like, the Gazetteer was just like, I was already hooked, but that just like tractor beamed me right in, just sucked me right in. And that was it. So it was
Well,
cool,
another
man.
thing that was happening at that time were all those cheesy fantasy movies. But when you're a kid and all those cheesy
Dune.
fantasy movies, they always
Yeah.
had something that you could use in your game. Like
Yeah.
the sword and the sorcerer with the three-bladed sword that shot its blades off.
Yeah.
And I made that up for my game.
Oh.
So
Remember that darn video game called Dragon Quest where you would just keep shoveling quarters in and dying every 5 seconds because you had no clue what was going on and that game was crazy. I remember when you were playing that game, you had to jump over the stones that were floating across the chasm. So I remember when our DM told us about this, I'm thinking Dragon Quest and I'm fixing to die. So yeah, levitate spell. But we played everything so wrong, Now a couple years ago, I went back and started reading all the basic stuff, and I the first thing I said to myself, "Oh my God, we played this game totally wrong." But it didn't matter. We had fun. I mean, we had fun
no,
for
it doesn't matter.
15 years, man. So one of my viewers, Belle, she has a friend Trey that you grew up with as a kid,
Right.
and she told me this story about your D&D books. About you, I guess you guys were shoveling them out of the window. They were going to get taken or something.
Yeah, during the
like that.
Satanic Panic, my parents decided that my D&D books had to go. So my friend Trey was standing outside of the window, and I was just tossing him out the window. The thing that bothered me the most about that actually was that my brother and I bought those books with our own money. So we saved our money and bought the books. It wasn't like they were given to us as Christmas gifts. I mean, the basic and expert set were given to us as Christmas gifts, but a lot of the AD&D books that we had were stuff we bought with our own money. So.
I used to loan my friends money, and when we'd get together every weekend and play, they would need money to go to Hot and Now or to Winn-Dixie to get the big 60 cookies and 2 liters. So if they didn't pay me back, I would repo their books. And my friends would always tell me, "It's okay, my mom and dad will just buy me another one." So I'm like, cool. So I ended up having 5 first edition players handbooks and 5 of the deities and demigods and all those other.
Man, you were mean.
I was, man.
Ruthless.
So I've always been a hoarder of D&D books, as you can plainly see. So yeah, that was. But I used to. I had that during the Satanic Panic. I had that same sit down too, and that was a kind of a testing period, because I didn't know if I was gonna lose my stuff. But I was, like I told you before the stream, I was hiding everything, and we had an air conditioning unit outside, and I would take the big circular insulated hoses that would go from the air conditioning unit. I would take those off and hide my books inside of the air conditioner unit there. I would hide my books inside of the AC unit, and you take the screws off and take the grate down, and I'd hide my books up there. So yeah, I tried to, and the empty beer cans when I would drink Bush beer.
The thing is, like, when my parents got rid of the D&D books, we moved on to other games, and some of the games were the same. I mean, they were fantasy role-playing games. It's just it didn't say Dungeons and Dragons on it, so my parents were none the wiser.
Love Talasanta.
No, I never played Talasanta, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I have the newest version of it, though.
Yeah, the 5e Kickstarter. Is that? Yeah. I like that. Was actually the first fantasy game that we played that wasn't D&D. And then we also played the D100 Star Frontiers, because there's
oh man,
nothing
that was
sci-fi.
my favorite game.
Especially with the hex maps and the spaceships and stuff. My friend Terry was really into that, and he had all the old Mad Hatter led minis and stuff, and so yeah, that was pretty fun. The way that you could, have your character and your ship, modify your ship and all that stuff. But Spelljammer.
That's the interesting thing, is that
much.
when my parents, after my parents got rid of my D&D stuff, they actually bought Starfront.
Oh, that's awesome.
And got Gamma World at about the same time, I think.
Oh yeah, I remember Gamma World. Yeah.
Love that game.
And then there was what was it? Boot Hill, I think.
Boot Hill, we were playing Boot Hill, yeah.
Yeah, we goofed around with Boot Hill, and then we also goofed around with Blood Bowl. But Blood Bowl was it was so expensive. I mean, we would mow yards and buy stuff, and then we'd go over to Orlando to Enterprise 1701 and, skip school every day. That's all I got kicked out of school was D&D, but, well, I don't care. That was a long time ago. But yeah, there were so many other games out there, and that's how we got into Talasanta, was the Sailors, because it was the game store was right across the street from the Naval Training Center, and all these guys were playing Talasanta, which Talasanta was on like the comic book racks because they were thin little paperbacks, and it was just like basic D&D, basically. Your race and classes all rolled up into one, but as first edition came out and then later second edition came out, I mean, the mechanics of all three of those games, Beck Me, First Edition, it's all the same. It's all THACO, right? Except for, Second Edition had tons of flavor. And I was still playing my cleric, so what my DM allowed me to do is he would let me use the skills out of Talislanta, because I was playing a basic D&D. There's no customization in basic D&D, except for Turn Undead. So, yeah, I would at least be allowed to have Talislanta skills and stuff. So that was pretty cool, because everybody else is playing, multi-class First Edition and second edition characters out of the Psionics Handbook that was like so overpowered, and so I had like the gimpy hit cleric that would just go around and heal people. That's
Everybody needs a cleric.
It's a guaranteed job, It's a guaranteed job in the role playing world. So after you've been playing for a while, how you mentioned you started in 2003 with Wizards. How did that all go about, and how did that get started? Getting in the door with WoTC.
The weird thing is that I'm trained as a graphic artist, so that's what I'm.
So Jen Page then, right?
I'm acquainted with Jen Page.
Yeah. She works for Fantasy Grounds also now. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to get into games by laying out the books and stuff like that. When third edition came out, I was like, I got really interested in it, and then I started reviewing. Oh. Am I connected still?
Yep.
Okay,
Still here. Yep.
Screen went dark for a second. I think my computer decided it was going to go to sleep. Anyway, but I started reviewing third edition stuff, and my reviews were very technically detailed. And so people started asking me. They said, "Oh, all the stuff that you pointed out about this publication is right. Will you edit for us?" I was like, "Sure, you're going to pay me to edit? Sure, I'll edit."
Yeah.
And then during that time, Wizards had an open call for editors, for freelance editors. And I said, well, I've been editing this stuff and people seem to like what I'm doing, so why don't I just try to do that? And I took their editing test, and I started freelance editing for Wizards of the Coast right after that.
That's cool.
And then I did freelance editing for about 2 years, from about 2003 to 2005, and I ended up getting hired by Wizards of the Coast as an editor in 2005. I started the Monday after Katrina hit New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans. Yeah,
August 2005. So I still remember that, pretty based on that. So. But I started as a card editor, a TCG editor, not a Dungeons and Dragons editor, when I was employed in the office there. I didn't start working on D&D in the office for about a year, I think.
Wow.
And then I was an editor for a while, and then I became a designer, and then I was a developer. I basically done everything that you can do so a developer, an editor, a designer, a writer. I've minored in producer, I guess, when I worked on D&D Insider during the 4th edition era, because I would work with a lot of freelancers to get articles published. So
love the D&D.
So it was kind of a weird start, but it was a cool path.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen when you do something like that, I guess.
No, that's awesome, man. I mean, it at least got your foot in the door, and then it just opened up everything else for you. So, because I know that you've worked on a bunch of stuff. I mean, 3.5 and 4th edition. I love 4th edition, and I know that you had done a lot of the layer assaults and the seasons and stuff. And
a bunch of my work has been adventure work and monster related work.
I was gonna ask you that. I was gonna ask you if that was sort of like your specialty, like monsters, because I noticed it's like you did 3.5 monster manuals towards the end there. You did all of the monster manuals in fourth edition. You did the monster manual in fifth edition. So I was like, yeah, I think, and the bestiary from Pathfinder, and I think a couple of the Alien Archives also from Starfinder. So yeah, you've been doing some stuff. So well. If you're there you go.
There we
You're
go.
back. There you go. You're
I am in Austria, so
No, I mean, actually for being overseas and stuff, I mean, the internet's actually really really good.
it's not too
Probably
bad.
yeah, probably the best cuz I have a couple of players that are over in Sweden, and their internet is, especially the colder that it gets over there, the worse their internet gets. So, but so that's cool. What about what are the favorite projects that you've worked on? Whether it's with Wizards of the Coast or Paizo or any of the other companies you've done work for. What are some of the favorite projects that you've worked on?
I think my favorite project was probably working on Dark Sun for fourth edition.
Ah, nice. Yeah, the player's guide and the creature catalog. Yep.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I love that is because they allowed me to design the defiling and preserving for those games, for that version of the game.
Oh, wow.
So I got to kind of redo that type of special magic for Dark Sun, which I always felt like it wasn't flavorful enough in the older version, So what I really wanted was for defiling to be super tempting, and for preserving to be harder. And the original design, at least, was that defiling was literally easier to play, and the bonuses that you got from it early on were made it tempting. Yeah. And in that version of Dark Sun, you didn't choose whether you were a defiler or a preserver when you started out as a wizard. You chose defiling and preserving by your actions during the game.
Yeah.
And by taking and basically following the tree of being a defiler or a preserver via feats and other things. So, I've heard people say that that version of defiling didn't seem as a lot like it was in first edition, and that was on purpose, but also to really understand the design, you'd have to analyze it all 30th level.
Yeah.
Because it was designed from first to 30th level, basically.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what you talked about. You didn't think it had enough in the earlier editions, and that's why you did what you did. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of fourth edition. I love fourth edition. So, one of the editions that I prefer to run. I mean, it's set up beautifully for a game master or a DM, and all of everything is cut and dry. It's like this versus this defense, and here's your damage. I mean, you can't get any more simpler than that, and that's what I really liked about it. And the customization. I mean, there's 8,000 powers and 4,000 feats. I mean, it's just crazy. I remember, speaking of the D&D Insider, there was a parse program that you could actually skim all of the data out of the Insider, and it made Fantasy Grounds modules. So, you had 6,700 monsters, the old, pre-monster manual redesign monsters with essentials, and man, it was just laid out beautifully. All the feats.
Well, I think a lot of DMs lament. A lot of DMs who were fourth edition DMs, they moved to fifth edition and they like fifth edition, but they miss how monsters worked in fourth edition. The minion, regular monster, elite monster, solo monsters. Yeah. There are elements of that survived into fifth edition, but I wish more had survived.
So speaking of fifth edition and monsters, I love D&D 5th edition. I mean, it's done nothing but good things for the hobby. I mean, D&D
Yeah, I
is
do
like
too.
more
I think it's
popular
great.
than any before, than ever before. But in D&D Next, the monsters were level based. Why on release did they go to a challenge rating? And I know you did the monster manual, so was that something that you decided to do, or was that just like a Mike Merle's Crawford thing, or?
I think that was a higher level than I was.
Hmm.
I advocated for it to be called level.
Hmm.
I advocated for everything to use the word level. I
Yeah,
don't. I didn't see the point of going into jargon
I got you.
just because it had been tradition, But e- even if they had called it challenge level, right, instead of challenge rating or challenge, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. Is it challenge rating still, or is it challenge?
CR. I think it's CR.
I see
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But uh, if they had even called it challenge level to relate it to the character level, would have made more sense to
Yeah.
me. But it's not the way it ended up working out. Sometimes decisions like that are made based on how the math works and stuff like that. So
Yeah, that math though in the Dungeon Master's Guide for monster creation, that was, I mean, the number swings are just so massive, and it doesn't, it's like 13th Age and Starfinder and now Pathfinder 2 with the new Game Mastery Guide that I just got. Everything is static. So if you want to make a level 5 monster, here's the perception score for it. Here's your damage. Here's your area of effect damage. And I love that. But in the D&D 5e monster manual, it was just too much of a guessing game to me. And because I love to create monsters. And I just thought that the numbers were just, you can have, okay, for creating a challenge rating, 1/2 kobold or whatever kind of kobold, like a slinger from, 4th edition. I love the slingers with the D4 different types of bullets they had and stuff.
right, yeah,
So if I wanted to create a challenge rating half, it would have anywhere between like 10 and 40 hit points. I'm like, that's like way too big of a swing. So I'm like, there's no static numbers or, it's all, I just threw my hands up in the air and I was like, I don't know. I can't figure it out. So,
well, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus or anything like that, but I was not involved in mathematics game really.
no.
I was involved in a lot of, I guess, what you would call narrative design decisions. Like, for example, one of the reasons that petrification works differently on different monsters is because we talked about that and wanted the Medusa, for example, to be the most dangerous petrifying monster in the game.
Yeah. That and the basilisk, right? I mean, the Medusa and the
Yeah,
basilisk.
but
Yeah.
but the Medusa is much more dangerous than the basilisk, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, and both are much more dangerous than the cockatrice. So,
Yeah.
and that's intentional.
But it makes sense. I mean,
So
it's a huge iconic figure in Greek and Roman lore. I mean, it should be. So, I mean, oh. So yeah, that's cool to hear that. You know, because I've always wondered what happened to, the levels of monsters, and it's cool to actually to hear that. So you've got a Kickstarter going on right now,
yeah,
and yeah, I was like, wow, this is actually really cool. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about Draculola? Lola, I'm sorry about that.
yeah. Draculola is
And I'm putting the
a
link in
character.
chat as well for everybody. So you can click on that link and it'll take you to the
Dracula.
Kickstarter page.
How many people do we have in chat?
We have it's going anywhere between 15 and 20. So
Uh, so Draculola is a character that my 8-year-old daughter created, and she created this character because, first of all, there's tradition here in Austria called Fasching, which is related to Catholic holidays in the States. I don't know what it's called in the States. Carnival, maybe.
mhm.
But kids get dressed up, and but uh, they also have Halloween here, but it's less popular. But she has a vampire princess dress, like it's dark burgundy and it has black and it has little bats on it, stuff like that. So uh, she likes this dress and she likes the idea of being a vampire, and she heard the story of Dracula, and she found it very sad because Dracula dies really in this story, but so she wanted to make a happier character, but in her mind, the most important vampire ever is Dracula. So she made up this character Draculola as Dracula's great-great-granddaughter.
That's cool.
So in her imagination, vampires can have children, right? So Draculola has a mom and a dad, and she has little brothers, and so. And I thought it was such a great, and she's been writing stories about this character, right? So, and I just thought it was such a cool idea that, I love simple games too. Like I've spent most of my career making pretty complex games or helping make pretty complex games, but I like the idea of simple games. So I decided that this was such a cool concept. And she had also made up other characters that were friends with Draculola, and she made up where Draculola lives, which is a place called Zitterstein, which translated from German means tremblestone. So, so I just made up a game that kids could play.
That's awesome.
And then use that as the setting and the characters.
It's something really cool that you and your daughter can do this together. You know what I mean? I mean, that's like, right. That's great. That's like I mentioned, you guys will look back, years ahead, and you'll say, "Oh, that was a fun time." We made a game. So how rule light is it? Obviously, it's targeted towards children. So what is the mechanics of it? With just like a slight breakdown of it.
I'm going to go on a slight tangent before I describe what the mechanics are.
Sure.
And that is, so I've learned over the years of playing that new players are the best at breaking out of your rule system. Mm-hmm. So, I was playing Gamma World that was derived from 4th edition, the version of Gamma World, 7th edition Gamma World derived from 4th edition D&D. With some people, and one of the younger players said, and it has like 4th edition does, it has very regimented powers, right?
Yeah.
But one of the players, he was a brand new player, and his character had telekinesis, and he's like, well, why can't I just use my telekinesis to like pick something up and bring it to me? I was like, you can. We don't have to. You don't have to be restricted to those powers. You can just tell me what you want to do, and we can equate it to one of the powers.
Yeah.
And if it's encounter level power, then you use your encounter power to do whatever you wanted to do. But if it's at will, like the Jedi bringing his lightsaber to his hand, then yeah, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
So
that's the way I like to DM. Also, I mean, there's no need to go 100% by the rules, because like you said, some games can get super complex, and why not just make it easier?
Yeah, and I've had other experiences where I just gave people just plain English words, like character has telepathy, and just let them play in a rules light system. So one of the ways it's rules light is that it emphasizes what the player imagines about the character by using plain English to describe aspects of the character. So when you make your character, you start with what type of monster are you, what's your personality like, and what's your major skill, and that's it. That's cool. That's the core of the character. And then you have 2 ability scores, and one is called Kid, and the other is called Monster. And when you're running the game, when you're the person running the game, it's up to you kind of to decide which of those 2 abilities you use when you roll, or can be used when you roll. But there are rules in the game about which one applies. So Kid is for doing kid things like running away from other monsters, or just climbing a tree, or eavesdropping on adults, or whatever. stuff like that, and monsters for scaring people and using your powers, or if you have monster powers and stuff like that. So, and in the game you have another attribute called power, and you can use that to basically change what's happening in the game. You can pay it to the narrator, the person running the game, to make yourself better at something, for example, or you can use it to power your powers, or you can give it to somebody else, another player, to say, I want you to do this thing now. And if they take the power from you, then they have to do what you ask them to do. It's a negotiation.
Yeah.
And the narrator has power too, and can do the same thing. Like, your character is greedy, so I want you to grab the gem off the pedestal. Here's some power. And if you take the power, then you have to do it. Right.
That's cool. I like it.
Since monsters are so resilient, this game isn't really about violence, but it's more like Scooby-Doo,
It's what it sounded like to me. Because of the whole narrative part of it, as you're talking about. It didn't seem like it was hack and slash, which is a good thing, especially for for kids.
Yeah. So your character has the hit point ability is called hope, and when you lose all your hope, you're kind of out of the scene. Mm-hmm. So you're like cowering in the corner or whatever. Whatever's happened to you, but one of your friends can give you some power, and then you regain a little bit of hope. So
that's cool.
It's a game about kind of exchanging and helping your friends and figuring out mysteries and doing crazy things that are not really about fighting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Stuff like that. Although, if somebody wanted to play it with fighting, it could be played that way. I mean, this 2 attribute system, kid monster, can be used for just about anything. I mean, you could have murder hobo. I mean, it's a 2 attribute system. So, and it would work. It would be a simple game, but it would still work.
Yeah,
and it would be fun and funny. But that would be a hack and slash, murder hobo.
Yeah, I like how you're concentrating on the lack of mechanics. With just the 2 different, the kid score and the power score. I think that's good. And like I said, it breaks kids into our hobby. And, I was kind of a little leery because my son's found all my basic D&D stuff. And when he starts seeing, my rule cyclopedia with this huge dragon on the front, breathing fire, I'm like, and the violence and stuff. But I mean, but it helps kids. Not only are they learning group, how to function with other people in a group, so it's helping their social skills, but it also helps with reading and basic math and stuff. And I've always been a proponent of that. And so, because my son at first I was like, I don't know if I want you to look at all this stuff. And he just he'd sneak into my room when I was, when I'd be sleeping, he'd sneak in and, he'd have my books all over the place. So I just finally, I caved in. So, but yeah, I wish there were. I know that there have been other attempts to make kid games and stuff, RPGs, but usually they resort to killing stuff. I mean, I know that Wizards had done a couple of children's adventures, and in fact, I think it was for 4th edition, and but the whole cowering in the corner and stuff, and not having your head cut off by the werewolf's claws just taking you out. I think that's good, and they can deal with that kind of stuff later on with the other games.
They can graduate to murder hobo.
Yeah. Maybe have another supplement come out with a Kickstarter goal, the murder hobo supplement. So how's the Kickstarter already launched, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I put it in.
It's been going for about 2 days, I think. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, for 2 days is going good. It looks like you got 66 backers, and that's cool.
Yeah.
11 days to go. So I put the link into the Twitch chat, and then I'll also put it on the videos and tweet it out. I like this kind of stuff, and I'm surprised. Yeah. Honestly, I'm surprised there's not more, games that are targeted towards children.
Well, there's like No Thank You Evil, which is a pretty cool game by Monty Cook and his company. And
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
it's kind of a cipher system light, and it's incremental too. Like for really little kids, you could use it in a much more simplified version, and that's written in the rules how to do that. And I think that you could definitely play that game for giggles and not with violence if you wanted to. I don't think it necessarily de-emphasizes violence, but I think it kind of cartoonizes it, maybe.
Yeah. Which is not a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. So what kind of games do you got running right now? Are you running Draculola for your kids, or?
Yeah, we're playing around with that, and they're very excited about, because they wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, but really Dungeons and Dragons, especially like 5th edition, beyond a 5-year-old, unless you really simplify it. I mean, which I could do, but I'd rather play something that is from their imagination anyway. So
yeah,
Dracula is kind of a natural for that. But I'm also playing Dungeons and Dragons. I'm actually playing a streamed game for a company called Vorpal Board.
Oh, that's cool.
Every couple weeks, we stream the game. And I'm playing a paladin, a half-orc paladin in that one.
Do you have a link that I can put into the chat so people can
a link to
the channel that you're streaming on?
Sure. It's just let me find it. I think it's Twitch TV Vorpal Board.
Okay.
Let's see.
So while you're looking for that, do you have a favorite game that you've played? Like, what is your favorite game? Is it D&D? Is it Pathfinder? Or?
Oh man, that's a hard question because I've played so. Can I send it to you over Discord?
Sure. Yeah, and then I'll post it in there. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see.
And
let me think. I mean, it's hard for me because
there's so many good games out there.
So many good games, but there's also there's this phenomenon when you have done so much design work, or so much development work that you can see the system damage pretty plainly when you're playing a game. You have to learn to ignore it. But I like so many games. I just in my crotchety old age, I've come to prefer simpler games. And games that don't put a lot between you and using your imagination. But that wasn't always the case. I mean, I played, of course, Dungeons and Dragons, and I played Rollmaster.
Oh my gosh. Roll for what part of the body that gets hit? I mean, that was crazy.
We played GURPS for a long time.
That could get pretty complex too. GURPS could.
Yeah. And White Wolf games and Savage Worlds. I really like the way Savage Worlds plays.
Yeah. It's Fast and Furious with the acing.
It is Fast and Furious.
That little honey badger, that thing will rip your arm off and kill you with a 58. No, I can't soak all that. I'm screwed.
I like D&D, but I actually like basic D&D better than I like 5th edition D&D. But that's only because simplicity. Yeah. I don't think that that's normal. I don't think that my habit with.
No, I mean, I prefer basic. I love basic D&D. I mean, it is exactly as it's advertised. It's basic. I mean, the Gazetteers put in optional skills, which was cool. The Black Mastery box put in weapon mastery. But before those two optional additions to the game, it was swing your sword and that's it. Or cast a spell if you could. There's no... In basic D&D, there's no 3 successful saves to live, and there's no 3 strikes to die, you hit 0, you're dead pretty much. You are dead in basic. And of course the advanced would go into negatives, but yeah, basic D&D, that would always hold a special place in my heart. That's probably my favorite game to play.
There's a whole old school movement now, Sword Dream and stuff. But I haven't gotten the chance to play any of those games. I think that there's some flaws in basic D&D that make it harder to play in certain situations. If a game fixed some of those aspects of it, it would probably be perfect for me. But on the flip side, one of my favorite games to play for the setting and the way it actually comes out at the table was Mage: The Ascension.
Okay.
And one of the reasons I like that game is because the magic was freeform. You had to make up what you were doing every time you did something magical.
That's cool.
And that type of creativity at the table just makes for a really cool experience every time you play. It's always unexpected.
Sort of like the trappings in Savage Worlds, right? How you could just the bolt means you could do 50 different, shoot lasers out of your eyes, or
exactly.
Fling, fire, that poo that's on fire, or whatever you wanted to do. Yeah. So
another thing I love about Savage Worlds is that you can have really big and the hero characters aren't in that much danger if it's just a lot of mooks.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And also, you don't have to use a grid.
Yeah.
The way that game is played, even if you want to play with a miniature grid, it's just, I would actually do that with D&D, is take the grid away and just use the way the Savage Worlds measures distances and stuff like that. So
gotcha. Yeah, there's no hit point attrition in Savage Worlds and no hiding behind those 22 and 24 armor classes. So
yeah,
exactly. You're meant to get hit. You're meant to get hit in Savage Worlds. It's all about, soaking up those wounds and getting more bennies and doing fun stuff to get more bennies so you can spend more. And I did a couple of seasons of Zombie Apocalypse. That was pretty fun. That was really good. Had one of my players lost a leg first session in the first season, and it lost an arm in the first session of the second season. Oh, poor guy. It was like his left leg was gone and his right arm. So it was so...
That actually reminds me of a 4th edition situation. So this rumor that was going around that kill anybody in 4th? Do you remember people saying that?
I don't understand that, but yeah, I remember.
One of my poor friends, he had just made up a character. And in the first session, before he acted in the first combat, the bad guy targets him with 2 attacks. He's dead. Like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's a thing.
Yeah. And there's no role playing in 4E either, so I remember that. So.
Yeah, we never role played, actually. We actually all wore masks and talked in monotone. That's how the game is really played.
That's right. That's how 4th edition is. All the 4E haters out there. So there's a couple of them. Well, we got a couple minutes left, so let's see if anybody out there in the Twitch stream wants to ask any questions. If you don't mind asking, we'll answer a few questions. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask away. So do you have like a favorite setting or type of genre that you like to play, or is it pretty much fantasy?
I don't. The thing is, I have to say this is going to sound kind of dumb. And I love all the settings. But I have a very special place in my heart for Dark Sun. I really like Dark Sun, but I like Mage: The Ascension. It's hard for me to nail down. I've played so many things, something specifically favorite.
Belle's got a question.
All right.
She's asking, most creative weapon used in one of your games.
Most creative weapon, another character.
The most creative weapon used in one of your games.
Yes. So the most creative weapon used in one of my games, troll. That was a troll picking up somebody and using them as. Which is a lot of fun. It gets a good reaction at the table when you say, okay, well, the troll picks you up. Well, you roll the attack rolls, you do all the things that you're supposed to do mechanically, and then the troll picks you up by your leg, and then he swings you at the dwarf, and then both of you take damage as he lets go of you, and you both go flying. Right?
I could just see the cinematics of that, playing through my head. That's good. Here's another question from Omni. Did you work on Living Greyhawk or Living Forgotten Realms?
I didn't work on either of those campaigns.
All right, good question. Didn't you do some dungeon adventures too in Dungeon Magazine? Did you do any of those?
It depends on which. It depends on which version of Dungeon Magazine you're talking about. But yeah, I did
40.
some dungeon stuff.
I miss Dungeon and Dragon, man. When Chris wrote those articles in the last issue, I was like, we're never going to see this again. So, we're going to take a break from Dungeon and Dragon, and I was like, well, we'll never see these again. And then the Dragon app came out. But I can see why. I'm sure it was a major effort to try to, have timely releases every month with multiple articles and adventures, and I'm sure that was such a huge job to get done. So,
yeah, and I was developing a lot of those adventures for 4E Dungeon. So,
yeah, there's it's every single one. There were 3 or 4 or 5 adventures, and then you had what else? You had the Chaos Adventure series. What was it? The Chaos
Scar.
Yeah, the Chaos Scar in Nintervale. Actually, it was to the western part of the Nintervale. So yeah, you had that, and then you had I believe there was another series too, but yeah, there's so much content, and so I can kind of see why they did it. But I still miss. I'm old school. I miss those magazines. So if I could access the app on the web, that'd be great. But it's an app for your phone, and I just don't do apps. I think I have the Walmart grocery app. That's the only app that I have because I have to have the Walmart grocery app to check in and tell them what parking place I'm in. So.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Megamind has got a question. Most powerful adversary used against your players used in one of your games.
Most powerful adversary. In my Dark Sun campaign, so when I run, so I started this campaign in 4.4e playtesting Dark Sun. And then it ran long enough that the book was actually published, and then we were using that stuff. But when I start a campaign, I usually ask the players some of the things that they want out of the campaign, what they want to do. And one of the characters in this campaign, one of the players wanted his character to be involved in resurrecting a god. So toward the end of the campaign, they were coming very close to succeeding at that, but they had to go to this place. They had to go to the Pristine Tower in Dark Sun, which is a place where one of the first Sorcerer Kings changed the world, right?
Yeah.
And drained some of the magic out of the sun, etc. So they went to this place to accomplish their goal, but there was basically a demigod level god killer there. Like,
waiting for
it's hard to describe what this monster was, but it's like an ancient Greek Titan type of thing that they had to fight on while climbing up this tower.
Oh, wow.
And defeat it, and then harness its energy to accomplish the ritual that they wanted to do to bring back this goddess that they had found out how to resurrect.
Was it a skill challenge?
Exactly.
I love skill. Why weren't those put in 5th edition, Chris? Was it they just wanted to get away from 4th edition? But because I've ran 5th edition skill challenges and they work great.
I think that there was a certain pushback against the codification of skill challenges, like too regimented. I think that they still exist. I think that people write them just kind of in a looser way.
Yeah.
But there's no 9 successes before 3 failures or whatever. But
yeah, some of the skill challenges could get a little daunting, using the same skills, but I thought Essentials did a really nice job kind of going back what Dungeon Master Guide 1 and 2 originally talked about the skill challenges, how it was cleaned up. And plus, I think Mike did a 9-article series in Dragon that also talked about skill challenges as well. So I like skill challenges. They were always fun to do. So closing the portal, or just for a simple rest, or you can hear the kobolds try to claw their way into your room, and you could do all kinds of stuff. So, well, that's cool, man. Chris, I totally appreciate you coming on. I mean, it's been nice to. I can't believe an hour's already gone by, man. Time flies by.
Yeah, when you said time was already gone, I was like, when you said we had a few minutes left, I was like,
yeah, it's like time just. I just happened to look down at the clock and I'm like, whoa, holy cow. So, I wish you luck on the Kickstarter, and I'll get those, all the links put into Twitch again. I'll also get those put onto the YouTube video, the Twitch video, etc. And if there's anything that I can do, just let me know. And it was definitely nice talking to you and hearing, story. This is the great thing about meeting people in the industry is, because they're gamers just like I am, and it's fun to hear, their stories and how they got into D&D and their favorite settings, their favorite games and stuff. And so it's been a real pleasure.
We're all, everybody that I've ever worked with is a gamer that just, I guess, kind of flabbergasted that they get to do it for a living.
And get paid to do it. So that's awesome, man.
Super awesome. And it was my pleasure to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. And we'll be expecting that Kickstarter goal of the Murder Hobo supplement for Draculola.
So I already have another version of the game called Brave Chicken. So
Do you really?
You have 2 stats, Brave and Chicken. Barnyard hijinks.
That's awesome, man. All right, Chris. Well, totally appreciate it. And we'll hopefully have you on again in the future. So thanks everybody for watching. Yeah, totally appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for tuning into the stream. It's definitely a lot earlier than what I'm used to streaming, but hey, when you got a 7-hour time difference, and it's like I told you in the email, I'm like, well, I can adjust my time to yours. And then when I was like, I usually start at 6, you're like, well, do you want the 1 a.m. Chris or the 2 a.m. Chris?
Well, I discovered that I was wrong. I'm actually, I think I'm 8 hours behind you. Yeah, I must be 8 hours behind you.
Yeah, it's 2 p.m. right now. So is it 10 o'clock your time?
And it's almost 10. It's 10 o'clock. So
wow, time flies by, man. All right, man. Well, we'll holler at you later. Thanks everybody for watching, and until next time, happy gaming, and stay safe. Bye, everybody.